Let me dive straight in then. I'll share my screen and show my presentation momentarily. So my presentation is called Playing by the Rules, Gamifying Academic English Writing. The objectives of my presentation are twofold. Firstly, I would like to outline the theoretical foundations and demonstrate that there is a synergy between gamification and autonomous learning. Afterwards, I will try to showcase a way to implement what I call autonomous gamified learning. So first, I'll concentrate on theory and then double into the practical side. Let's start with gamification. I assume all of you are familiar with the concept of autonomous learning, so I will spend more time on explaining the background of gamification. Its origins lie in marketing. You may be familiar with products like Fitbit, Starbucks Rewards, or Nike. All of these products use ways to nudge users to engage more frequently with their products or with their providers, and they use gamification for this purpose. Recently, gamification has also appeared in education, mostly in primary and secondary education, but there have been examples at tertiary level, mostly in STEM subjects. So it is relatively new ground in language teaching. The most common definition of gamification goes as follows. The use of design elements characteristic for games in non-game context. Sorry. So what is important to note here is that gamification is a design. It doesn't restrict one in terms of content. It really offers a way to present content that we originally wanted to show to our students. And of course, the non-game context in our case is just the educational context. What is crucial is to distinguish between shallow and deep gamification. Because just mechanically using a few badges and trophies or having a leaderboard in our course doesn't constitute gamification yet. As Margaret Robertson put it, taking the thing that is the least essential to games and representing it as the core of the experience is what defines shallow gamification. So I try to introduce a more complex and nuanced system here. All right, so what are the theoretical underpinnings of gamification? Firstly, there is self-determination theory. And there is also the theory of gamified learning. I'll say a few words about both because both are quite pivotal for today's discussion. So self-determination theory states that there are three basic human needs that lead to growth, and these are autonomy, competence, and relatedness. You can notice already here that self-determination theory lays a lot of emphasis on autonomy. So it's no wonder that self-determination theory informs both gamification and autonomous learning. So they have common ground to build on. But autonomy, competence, and relatedness will be keywords momentarily. The theory of gamified learning stipulates that gamification in itself cannot bring about improved learning, but it can induce positive changes in terms of cognitive, motivational, and behavioral aspects in the students. And these can already lead to better learning outcomes. So we will concentrate on how to achieve cognitive, motivational, and behavioral changes in the students. Does gamification work at all? A link has already been established in the literature between gamification and improved learning outcomes, but there are limitations. Many studies lack really rigorous methodologies. So many of the results are either incomparable or or not quite reliable or solid yet. So we definitely need more studies, more case studies with rigorous methodologies. All right, so let's take a quick look at what I call autonomous gamified learning. I start with a definition and then break it down into smaller categories. So as I understand it, autonomous gamified learning is an individualized, non-linear learning framework that uses game-based concepts and tools for the sake of increased engagement. So the three keywords here are concepts, tools, and engagement. Let's tackle them one by one. The three core concepts are directly linked to self-determination theory. A sense of autonomy can be achieved in the students if they are given freedom of choice. A sense of competence will be given if we reward effort over excellence, and a sense of relatedness can be achieved with increased social interaction and feedback. Again, let's take a closer look. Freedom of choice means that students will have the right to decide about basically every aspect of their learning, whether this concerns their schedule, if they want to attend class, they prefer synchronous or asynchronous learning, whether it pertains to the content, the materials, the end goals of their learning. Everything is up to the student. Up to the point that they can even determine their own grades, because grades will ultimately only depend on how much effort the student invests rather than on their level of excellence. All this means that students will have increased personal responsibility for their learning, which of course takes us back to autonomy. This will give them a sense of autonomy. Why is effort so important? Failure is only possible if the student doesn't invest sufficient effort. The goal of the system is to increase time on task. If they are constantly rewarded for their effort, they will have a sense of achievement and development, a sense of pride in the work. So this is supposed to have students' engagement in terms of time. And lastly, social interaction can take many forms. Cooperation is a big part of the course setup. There are possibilities for peer review, co-writing, tutoring, forum, chats, and so on and so forth. But I also encourage a mild form of competition. The literature has already established that fierce competition might have negative effects on learning outcomes, so we try to remain very constructive in that regard. And students also receive a lot of feedback, whether it's automated feedback from quizzes, online quizzes, or delayed feedback from peers and the lecturer. Students are expected to thrive on getting this sort of feedback. So these are the three concepts: autonomy, competence, and relatedness, translated into the gamified learning environment. With what tools do we achieve increased engagement? Well, these are fairly standard. Unveiling of content that students don't see all the available options at once. They just have to gather experience points and level up in order to see more and more content. During this time, they can gather badges and trophies, but progress indicators also help them know where they are in the learning process. As mentioned before, collaborative spaces and leaderboards foster social interaction, but I also lay emphasis on having an engaging storyline with matching graphics. And I believe in the use of Easter eggs, which boost engagement again. What kind of engagement though? There are 4 kinds of engagement defined in the literature: cognitive, behavioral, affective or emotional, and social. The cognitive kind of engagement basically means that students are able to pay sustained attention and invest mental effort in their learning. unveiling of content is supposed to help with that dimension. If the student sees more and more available material, they may be more interested in the long run. Time and task is the behavioral dimension of engagement. This means that students' experience points, badges, leveling up, progress indicators have already been proven to boost that aspect. Storyline, graphics, and Easter eggs are supposed to have with the affective dimension of engagement, which means that students are more enthusiastic, more interested in learning, and they have a more positive attitude to school and learning. And there's nothing to explain about the social aspect. Students need to be able to be constructive and learn about mutuality, how they can help each other in order to get further. So collaborative spaces and to some extent leaderboards might help with that. So all in all, this is what autonomous gamified learning means, that with the concepts of freedom of choice and relatedness and competence, students will have better learning outcomes because of increased engagement. So how does it work in practice? I will walk you through the 4 core questions: who, what, why, and how. My course that I'm trying to gamify at the moment, it is still a work in progress. There are 30 to 40 Swiss and international master students per semester who study management, technology, and economics, which is a very interdisciplinary, well, it's an interdisciplinary department. So they have very diverse linguistic and disciplinary needs. The course itself is called Academic English Writing. The core objective is to prepare students for the writing of their master's thesis, but we also prepare them by extension for other writing tasks, whether during their studies or in their jobs. The course has 2 content areas. The first one is discourse analysis, which is open to all students. And there is, for lack of a better word, a language awareness component in which students' initial levels are calibrated with a placement test, and different content areas are unveiled gradually. In discourse analysis, the topics include the following: managing the writing process, paragraph structure, and writing different chapters in a master's thesis, whether it's introduction, methods, abstracts, and so on. In terms of language awareness, there are 3 tiers: the novice, the trainee, and the master, and 3 areas: sentence structure, grammar, and vocabulary. And students are exposed to different kinds of materials, concentrating on these topics. All right, so why am I doing this in the first place? This course is compulsory, but it is worth 0 credits, which means that most students come with a relatively low motivation. To this, frequent scheduling conflicts are added when students need to take other courses or have internships, interviews, jobs. So some flexibility has already been expected on all sides. And lastly, because of the widely different linguistic and disciplinary needs, I have already been trying to tailor to very different needs, but it was relatively difficult within the conventional framework. So these are the 3 main arguments why I started on this path. So let's talk about the nuts and the bolts. How is it done? There are 2 kinds of materials. Online, there are lots of language awareness tasks. These are mostly guided discovery tasks or quizzes. There's also a lot of input for flipped classroom activities. And most of the interactive spaces are online: the peer review, the forum, the collaborative spaces, for example, wikis or Google Docs, and so on and so forth. And the offline component is mostly task-based group learning activities. Just to give you an example, students do research on how to be an efficient writer and then compile guidelines for future students. Since, as I have already mentioned, this is just a work in progress, I haven't had a real in-class trial for this one. I'm still in the phase when I'm trying to figure out the online materials. The procedure is as follows. The online component is tracked automatically, and the offline component is tracked by me. Students can receive points for individual or group work. Everything, whether it's individual or group effort, is rewarded. And I think assessment will be the key. This will give you a very good overview of what's happening here. So we have a point-based system, and by the end of the semester, students are expected to gather a given number of points for each grade. There are 2-week-long terms, which help us pace the work, because students are expected, well, not expected, but they are nudged to earn a given number of points in every fortnightly period. But if they decide to earn all of their points in the last 2 days, if that's possible, they can do it. Probably more likely in the last 2 weeks. And students can decide whichever way they want to earn their points. As you may notice here, even attending a class is rewarded, or peer reviewing a text, or undertaking a large group project. Anything is rewarded with points. And the tailoring, the differentiation happens on the basis of gamer profiles as established by Bartol. The classic student, which is not part of the Bartol taxonomy, this is what usually happens in my classroom. The student attends class, submits the assignments, does a few online quizzes, and participates in peer review. This is business as usual. So how does this change with different gamer types? The explorer is much more interested in the breadth of materials that are available to them. So they review most online materials, but they are not interested in participating in classes or in peer review. They want to see what is possible within the system. So they will earn most of their points through engaging with online materials and Easter eggs. The killer, on the other hand, wants to be better than the others, wants to be the best in a group. So they will probably place several times on leaderboards and collect, by extension, trophies and badges. But in order to do these, of course, they will need some participation and review most of the online materials as well. The achiever wants to be the best possible self of themselves. So they are expected to reach master level in all categories, collect a lot of badges and trophies, but they will probably also participate in group projects, have this sense of competence, which is very important for them. The socializer, on the other hand, is likely to attend most, if not all, classes, because that provides them an opportunity to socialize. Will definitely participate in group projects, peer review, probably coaching, and post on forums and chats. So this is just a quick overview of what kinds of approaches students can take in order to earn points. The platform ETH uses is Moodle. So I have tried to create my niche in that environment. Luckily, there is a Level Up plugin, which automatically tracks points, levels, badges, and so on and so forth. What the teacher needs to do is to carefully design the rules so that everything matches and creates this learning environment. If you are familiar with Moodle, I'm just giving you a few examples that labels are used for the presentation of level-dependent avatars, as you see it in the right-hand side. This avatar only appears if you are level 2. The rules are you are level 2 or greater, but you are not yet level 3 or greater, so exactly level 2. But we use workshops, student quizzes, wikis, glossaries, polybook quiz, and so on and so forth. All right. Why is this important for research? As I have mentioned it at the beginning of the presentation, there is more need for reliable data. So I'm planning to gradually roll out this framework to measure the impact of individual design elements. Hopefully, with the help of a control group, I will be able to calibrate how much the engagement of students and different dimensions of engagement increase or not, depending on what tools and what concepts are utilized. All right, so this is the short walkthrough. In conclusion, I would just like to restate the three most important statements. That theory does suggest that gamification can be accommodated in an autonomous learning framework. There is a very natural match between the two because of self-determination theory. And autonomous gamified learning is not supposed to bring about better learning outcomes in itself. It's supposed to impact cognitive, behavioral, affective, and social aspects in students. And lastly, there is a possibility to do all of this in Moodle, which is, I think, a commonly used higher education platform. And on a last note, if anyone is interested in learning more about gamification, these are excellent starting places. And for further reference, I have included all my citations here. All of the images have been taken from Pixabay under the Creative Commons license. Thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to hearing your questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Réka. Are there any questions? Anything you would like to ask? I have one question, Réka. Have you ever got any negative feedback from students with regard to gamification? And if yes, what was their objection? Or what do you think is a drawback of such a method for some students?
Very good question. So as I have mentioned, this is a work in progress. I haven't rolled out the Gamify platform yet. But what I have been doing is to ask students for a couple of semesters already about their attitude towards gamification. And it's basically a 50-50% of students who want to try gamification and who are more reserved in their opinions. So it will really be interesting to see whether it will eventually be a 50-50% of success when it's implemented, or if it remains the same. So in the long run, I would like to make this optional. And because the course will continue to run as a normal course as well. There will be contact hours, assignments, and everything that I usually do now as well. The classic student will be able to continue studying in their normal framework.
And do you know what their reason is for not being willing to participate in gamification?
Not entirely, no.
Okay, all right. There is one question in the chat. How many points is a student supposed to gain for an excellent grade?
So 3,500 points are the passing grade, and it's 200 points upwards.
Okay,
for every grade.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Anyone? So maybe one more, the last one. How time-consuming do you think it is to use this method in comparison to traditional or classical?
Can you say it again?
Yeah, how time-consuming do you think it is to use this method in comparison to?
Yes, excellent question. So I think initially it's very time-consuming to set it up, but once everything is in place, it's much more time efficient than the normal running of things, because students will. So I will basically outsource a lot of work to other students to do group work, peer work, individual research, and I will still continue to correct assignments and teach the contact hours. But students are encouraged to be much more self-reliant. And I expect that in the long run, it will be more time efficient, but it does require a strong time investment at the beginning.
All right, so thank you very much. Simon, Simon, do you have any questions? Just want to give you the chance. I'm not sure if Simon's there. Maybe not. Okay, so thank you.
I am indeed here, yes.
Yes.
I do have one short question. Do you anticipate that there are going to be disciplines that accept gamification more readily than others?
Oh, absolutely. And this is exactly why I have started with MTech, because they already know from management science and marketing that these are very efficient tools. So I think this is why they are expected to be more receptive to gamification. I probably don't expect other disciplines. I don't want to point the fingers, but more conservative disciplines might not be as open to this format.
Yeah, I can imagine too. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So thank you very much, both of you. If you would like to stay connected, that would be